This may look like a mess, and I may not be the world's best vivids or pastels hairstylist, but this color correction is surprisingly going according to plan. Welcome back, Bobby's crew. Today we are doing an extended bleach root touch-up. I am still experimenting with Wella Blondor, and this touch-up is being done on someone with a pretty sensitive scalp. So I'm trying a bit of a different routine today. It might seem a little bit backwards to a lot of people, and that's okay. This is what experimenting is all about, to see what's best for each individual client. So my client has tons and tons of root, and she loves to be a baby pink, and she just comes in a few times a year for extended root touch-ups rather than coming in more frequently because her scalp is so sensitive to lightener and chemicals. So I am starting today with applying her root first, and I know, number one, hairstylists are going to be like, why are you applying to the root first? And I know anybody who watches Brad Mondo is going to be like, you don't apply to the root first, girl. But today I'm applying to the root first. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm applying a gentler, slower, lower volume developer at her root. I'm using Wella Blondor, and I'm mixing it with its 10 volume developer. And the reason why I'm doing that is, in theory, this is how I'm planning on it going. And of course, you only figure out if theories work is if you actually try them. Is I'm going to be using a 10 volume on her root, applying that first, and then I'm going to be putting on a 20 volume between that root area and where she's previously lifted to. And there's a lot of different ways you can do bleach root touch-ups, but one thing I really don't like about applying to the mids and leaving the roots out is how incredibly difficult it is to separate the hair once you've saturated it with bleach in order to get to that root area. Which is, if you've seen a lot of my other videos, I'll do a platinum card technique and use the foils to be my pre-made sections for me, which makes it a very clean, very easy, and very fast application back onto the roots. But if you're applying a bleach touch-up and you're not using foils to separate each section, you just have to take that foil comb, like that rat tail comb, and pull apart those sections bit by bit. It can be very tangly, very messy, and you're just trying to get up to the root. So I figured, why don't we start with something that's lighter and gentler on the root first, and then we will apply to the mids after. So the plan here is we are starting with the front area, and then we will be doing the back. And I am going side to side with each piece at the front. I'm going left, right, left, right, left, right. And then once I'm done that, I'm combing out all of the hair, detangling it, making sure that it pulls any hairs that are closer to the scalp or maybe have folded in away from that lightener so that the hair doesn't break. And this is just something I do with all of my bleach root touch-ups to make sure everything is tangle-free and as clean as possible. Then I'm going into the back and I'm applying, again, 10 volume, and I'm refreshing my bowl like every 10 minutes because I want to make sure it's its freshest power and its strongest but still very gentle power to begin with. And I am starting out by coating my perimeter first, anywhere that's on the outside. And the reason is because that outside area is exposed to more air, so it's going to dry out a little faster, and it's going to be a little harder for it to lift at the same speed as everything else that's being incubated, like these areas I'm applying to right now. So if you apply to your perimeter first, it gets a little bit more time with the lightener on it, so that means it can lighten up and basically everything else can catch up to it rather than it catching up to everything else, which it won't because it's exposed to the air, it's cooled down, it dries out faster, and then that's how you get orange areas behind the ears and around those perimeter areas. So start with your perimeter before you do everything else. So because you guys know how this part works here, I'm going to skip down to the next part of my video since I've done my introduction. And if you do want to see more of my bleach root touch-up tips and tricks, please go check out some of my other videos because that's where I delve in a little bit deeper into this kind of service. But this is more of a correctional service because we have so many colors, we have extended roots, and we're doing a pastel vivid color today. So now is where I am mixing up my next bowl, and this is where I'm leveling up my developer. This is 20 volume with Wella Blondor, And what I'm really liking about Wella Blondoor is it doesn't swell very much, and that's what I'm counting on for a service like this. But I am also being very careful, and I'm still using my cotton to separate sections and make sure that I'm not overlapping a ton. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling out each section. I'm trying to go pretty thin with all my sections and very consistent with them as well. I'm using the back of my hand almost like as a board so that I can feel how much saturation I'm getting with each of these pieces, and so that I can fully penetrate the bleach through one end to the other end of the hair section, so I don't leave any areas out, because if you don't saturate enough or your section is too thick and not everything gets coated evenly, that's when you get big like orange areas in the hair. So thin sections, fresh bowls, and saturation are your 3 keys to getting your blonde as bright as possible and as even as possible. So I'm going back and forth, left to right, because this is allowing the whole front and top to be evenly lifted. If you do the entire left side and then the entire right side, if you're not super skilled in Bleach Root touch-ups, this can be something that causes one side to be brighter than the other. This is something I learned from Zach Mesquite, the king and god of blondes, who I love so much, as you guys all know. And I really like this method of his, where you separate the hair down where the parting is, or down the center of the hair, and then you work in diagonal forward, left, right, left, right, left, right. And that, again, yeah, equalizes how you're going to brighten up everywhere. It's going to make sure it's very evenly saturated and everything gets an equal lifting time. I'm sorry, I'm stuttering over my words today. The way I'm placing my cotton right now is I'm just kind of using it as something to kind of create this like little mini barrier in case there is any overlapping that I'm doing here, because I am saturating below the section and above the section as well to make sure I almost want to overdo it with my saturation. I want to make sure it's fully coated, and this cotton is going to suck up any extra lightener that is on this band from where the pink connects to her natural brown color. So if you're concerned about overlapping or anything like that, make sure to use cotton, because it is such a great tool to use for that. Working from the top of the head at the back towards the front is how I want to be working, because I want to follow the pattern that I used for my root application here, and I also want to make sure that I am insulating and keeping warm that entire back underneath section, which has to catch up to the front. So you layer on all this hair on top of that, it creates this warm little dome of protection. Everything's nice and heated, and it catches up pretty quickly. So, you know, killing 2 birds with 1 stone here. And here comes the messy part, where I have to now pull everything back towards the front and make sure that none of my areas are overlapping. This is the part where you might kind of want to reuse some cotton or get some new pieces of cotton in case anything is getting a little bit messy. You want to be gentle with the hair, take it little bit by little bit, and just kind of lift it up and away so you can still access the back and not really shift things around too much. I know it's a little crazy, but it is a trust the process situation, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of really neat ways to do color corrections like this, especially when you're experimenting with new processes and ways to do this kind of service. And I really like this service because we got her done super fast, and her hair, spoiler alert, ends up being pretty freaking amazing. For anybody who wanted a bit more of a close-up on what I'm doing here, this is probably a better shot for you to show exactly where I'm applying my cotton pieces and how I'm using the back of my hand as a pressure board so I can fully saturate the hair. This is my favorite shot here. And again, you know what? I didn't explain this earlier, but this is all footage from my live that I did on TikTok. I don't do them very often anymore, but that's, you know, the explanation for the really terrible quality imagery that I have today. I'm sorry, guys. I didn't have my camera with me, and I still wanted to film this, and TikTok Live seemed to be the best way to make sure that my phone wasn't just gonna crap out on me and say that I had, you know, a full memory base. So TikTok is actually a really good way to utilize that, and you get long-term footage. Even though it's lower quality, I think you guys still maybe wanted to see a service like this. Now the rest of this is pretty much all the same as it was in the front. It's just being laid down slightly differently because the hair lays downwards instead of backwards. So I'm just going to skip ahead to the next part. This is where you do all of your cross-checking. I've applied lightener all the way down in the back, all the way to where the pink band is, and this part is what separates the professionals from the newbies, is doing all of your checking for every single piece, making sure you have no little brown pieces left in between and that you haven't oversaturated. So I check every single piece. I take out any cotton that I need to. Any cotton that might need to stay in there to prevent some pieces from overlapping, depending where they are on the head, I'm going to leave in. But for the most part, I still will actually be removing some of this cotton using my rat tail comb. And just making sure, again, I know I use the words making sure a lot, but I am very thorough with this and want to ensure that I have the same level of lift from roots down to this pink area. And then that way I can reapply her new color and it will hopefully take a lot more evenly. What can happen if you don't have a very even situation is you're going to get banding. And banding is areas of a brighter, lighter lift and areas of a darker, oranger lift. And those areas will, take to the new color that you put on very differently, especially if it's a vivid color. Vivids tend to attach really well and tend to be a lot more vivid when you put them onto something with more of a yellow or an orange base, versus they tend to be more soft and pastel-y if you have them on a level 10 or 11 base. So that is the difficulty when you're working with kind of like platinum-y undertones and you're trying to put on something vivid. Then you want to have a little bit of that yellowy gold under there. But if you're working with a pastel color, you actually do want to lift it as high as you can. Still leave a little bit of that inside of banana yellow because that will help to support the pink and help to make it, appear softer and brighter and like a little bit vivid, a little bit pastel. It's kind of right in the middle, almost like a bubblegum color. Now that all my cross-checking is done, I am taking a plastic cap and I'm ripping a hole in the base of the back of it, grabbing her hair by the ponytail and placing my cap over her forehead kind of area and making sure that everything that is covered in lightener is totally protected from the air, and she's going to sit for another little bit until she's fully lifted. So here she is in the sink. This is looking like a pretty decent lift, but once she's out of the sink, you'll get a better idea of how she's actually looking. This looks fantastic to me. This is exactly what I want to see. It has just enough of that yellow in there to hold on to her new vivid color, but it's lifted light enough that we can still make it a nice pastel color. These ends are going to help us with our color, hopefully, and we don't have to pre-tone with this one. Today I'm going to be mixing the Schwarzkopf Chroma ID Bond Clear Mask with blush by Pulp Riot and a little bit of Cupid, and that's going to give us this really cute bubblegum pink color. And the way I'm going to be applying it, just for one of these videos here, is just super satisfying. But the way I'm actually applying it is I'm putting it onto the roots first, and then everywhere else I'm going to be combing through with my Framar brush. And I find that that's a really good way to apply vivids because using a comb is going to bunch the hair together in small groups, but using a very soft bristled brush, such as this one right here, is going to allow the hair to spread apart more so that that color can get in between all these little strands of hair and get sucked up a whole lot better. And if you want to use my Framar discount code, you go right on ahead. This is her after result, and I'm really happy with this. As I told you guys earlier, I'm not a pastel or vivids, specialist. I don't do a ton of them, but I am improving every single time, and I'm really happy with this result. And mostly because even though it looks like she has this really big shadow on the top of her head, it's just because we're not getting any natural light there. She is a little bit more vivid up at the roots, but she's a very soft color. And even though there are some slight inconsistencies in the color, it's not looking patchy to me. It's super, super soft. It's a cute, strawberry shortcake moment. She's a bubblegum princess. She loves this color. Her hair is super shiny and healthy, and we had no breakage, you guys. Her hair feels amazing. So another win for Wella Blondor. I'm very happy with that lightener. And again, I'm not sponsored by Wella or Schwarzkopf or anything like that. I'm just here to educate and show you guys what has worked for me. If you guys are vivid or pastel specialists, please write down in the comments what you would do to do something better for this, because I'm always into learning more. So if you have any tips or tricks for me, please let me know them in the comments below. What did you learn today? Did you learn anything at all, or would you have done anything differently? I'd love to hear all of your thoughts in the comments. And guys, if you want to support this channel, please remember to like and subscribe, and, you know, to let your friends know about this channel, because I'm just here to help everybody learn and become better hairdressers or hair enthusiasts as a community. Thank you guys so much for, you know, sticking to the end with me. If you have, make sure to comment Bobby's Crew. Love ya. Bye.